Data. Yes, every day we handle data in different forms. Every day, everything that we have around, we indirectly or directly take note of data. But some of you may not know. For example, the time that you woke up today is a data. What you ate today is also a data. What you have planned to do in the day is data. The amount of water you taking, the mark that you got from class is a data, or the subject that you have, all of them are data, forms of data. All this is a data that we kind of take note, we kind of hear, notice them, but we don't really take deep note into that. So data is any information, let's say information that you haven't processed yet. You haven't processed it means you haven't taken time to actually analyze it and then take time to understand them or to understand their relationships. That's what we have as data. Unprocessed information is data. How do we process it and get into information? So a tool that helps us in mathematics to properly and formally handle data is what we call statistics. Statistics is a branch of mathematics that is concerned with taking data, finding the relationship between them, and then coming up with a result or a conclusion based on the data in order to predict or give an outcome. So earlier I gave an example of the food that you're taking today, the class mark that you had. Right? Those are things that you just have, but you may not have any relationship with them because you just hear that, oh, this is the time. But if you take your time to understand, trying to draw a relationship between the mark that you got in this subject and in its relationship with another subject, when you are trying to get that relationship, what you are basically doing is you are trying to use statistics. So statistics is actually handling this data. In the examples we gave, I said the time that you woke up today, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., data of time. What you've eaten today, rice, um, rice, banku, fufu, all the food, right? They also data. But you can see that fufu and co, they are not numerical data, meaning that they are not numbers, but they are words that you can name of the food, places that you've gone to. All those things are forms of are data that are not in numbers form. So we have numerical data as well. So basically, most of the things that we are going to be handling, we are going to actually practice or master the use of numerical data. So basically we are going to focus on numerical data. Even if you mention the food, right? You say, oh, in the morning I'm eating rice, in the afternoon I'm eating rice, in the evening I'm taking banku. So you see that the rice happens how many times? You eat rice how many times in the day? 2 times. And then you eat banku once. So the number that is associated with that item, right? It's like a numerical data that you want to handle. So even if you have this non-numerical data that you can easily find a way of maybe classifying them and then still work with them. So, and there are different forms of data. There are different forms of data. So there are two. Let's go into. There are different forms of data. We have majorly, we are focusing on numerical data. So majorly we have the discrete data, we have discrete data and continuous data. Yeah, continuous data here. What's the difference and what do they mean? So in simple terms, for numeric, I'm going to use numbers to illustrate what numerical data is and that. So for discrete data, these are whole numbers that you have. Numbers numbers that do not contain fractions or do not contain decimal points. For example, a number like 1, 3, 7, 8, 9, 16. If you see every individual element in this data that we have, this collection of data that you have, none of them is a decimal point or none of them is a fraction. For continuous data may be 1, 3, 7, and at least one of them is 8.1, 2.5, 3, 3. three is here again, but then we can still repeat it. And then we have 17.5, or I can have half. Half is a fraction, or half is the same as 0.5. So basically, we can see that this is the basic understanding. If you see a numerical, if you see a data, you can easily tell whether it's continuous or discontinuous. So for continuous data, they have either at least one element that is having a decimal point, or one element that is a fraction. Yes, that's a continuous data. But for discrete data, they have they are whole numbers, right? Moving from one to another is completely whole numbers difference. But if you go to the other ones, you can move from 1 to 3. You can move from 1 to 3. You know that we just add 2. From this one to this, here you are going to add a whole number, and you are going to add 4. But if you want to move from here to here, you have to add 1.1. So we are not even we are not incrementing or decrementing, or the difference between them is not whole number throughout, but there is at least a fractional number, or a decimal number inside. So basically, when you see this decimal point or a fraction inside a data, a collection of data, we have a continuous data. And if you just have whole numbers counting like this, we have a discrete data. Yes. So for statistics, right, we focus on an experiment, or we focus on a particular domain and try to get a conclusion from there. So we cannot be taking data about your marks in class in a particular subject, and then go and pick your mark your the number of rice that you eating in the day to mix up with that data. Right? If you are focusing on marks that you got in a particular subject, let's say mathematics or biology, we cannot go and then take a number of food that you eat in the day and mix with that data. So if you are doing statistics, actually, we are going to do a collection of data from the same set. So if it's about marks, yes, let's handle focus on marks. If it's about number of food, let's focus on number of food. If it's about places that we've gone to, we shouldn't mix data from different places. So statistics is kind of focusing on a particular experiment, a particular domain, and get conclusions out of that. Yeah. So yeah, and discrete data, that's what we have for discrete data, and this is what we have for continuous data. The next important thing to talk about in statistics is frequency. Frequency. Frequency, from the word frequency, you see something like frequent, right? The word frequency is inside. How frequent do you have that particular item inside the data? So this is a particular collection of data that you have here, 137. I'm talking about the discrete data. So this is a particular collection of items that we have here. So we have item 1, which is 1. We have 3, 7. These are each of the components are called elements of the data. These are an element of the data, element of the data, element of the data, another element of the data. How many times does the element 16 appears in this data is what we call the frequency. How frequent it appears in the data that we have, right? So how frequent does something appear? That's what we call the frequency of that data. So if we talk about so let's say the item here, and then we are going to talk about its frequency here. So for this particular example of discrete data, so item which is item number 1, it appears how many times? How many times can we count 1 inside this? It's 1. Item 3, the item that we have, item 3, how many times can we count 3 over here? Is just 1. 7, how many times can we count that? Is also 1. So 8 is also 1, 9 is also 1, 16 is also 1. That's the frequency of the data. If you go here and do this for this same thing, you see that this is, let's say items are grouped here, and you have the frequencies here. So frequency is how frequent something appears, right? So if we're talking about item number 1, item 1, how many times does 1 appear in these things? Is only 1. Item number 3, so here, how many times does 3 appear in the whole data? How many times does the 3 appear in the whole data? You see that 3 is here 1, 3 is here 2, so there are 2 3s in the data. The same thing apply for everything that we have. The same thing apply for everything that we have. So the other thing, 7, 8, we can see that the rest appear once. So the number of appearance of something, or of an item, a particular item inside the data, we call it the frequency of that item. So the frequency of that item. Yes, That's basically about the frequency, and this is all about discrete data and about continuous data. So statistics is focusing on handling data, focusing on data in a particular group, trying to find relationship with them, and analyze it and draw conclusions from it, so that we can use it in our everyday life in order to make predictions and save. So how do you think that these chemicals or chemicals that we are taking, the drugs that are saving our lives, the plans that have been taken in place since technology is evolving, all of them are heavily based on data. So it's very important that we take the course in statistics, which I'm very happy that WASI is considering, so that you can actually master how to handle data, find relationship with them, and also draw conclusions from wherever you are. It's good to have such a knowledge, and I hope that you continuously be with us in the next video, so I will explore more about statistics for you to ace not just your WASI, but also be able to understand relationship between items and data around you, and begin to help you solve problems around you. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.